So I have a long, let me zoom out here, a very long chain of bias strips that I have pinned together. And I'm just going to pick one end and start sewing there. Okay, so as you guys can see, I marked my sewing line on this one. And I'm simply using a universal needle with white thread. Oh, I probably should have used contrasting thread, but sorry guys, I'm actually going to use this bias tape, so. And then we start sewing. Back stitch. Oopsie! That was suave. And then I clip my threads because I always follow the motto, sew, clip, press. And you should probably too. And then you're going to trim down this seam allowance here. Perfect. So even though they don't line perfectly, that's just fine. This is what we want to do. This is how we want it to look. Now, I have already sewn this strip. It has not been trimmed. On this guy, I'm going to clip the corners. See how nice that looks? Very nice bias tape, very stretchy. Okay, I could show you more sewing, but I'm going to move on and we're going to go over the ironing board. Okay everyone, please excuse how nasty my ironing board cover is. I really need to make a new one. So I just plugged in my iron and I have it set to an appropriate setting for cotton, which is the highest setting. I'm also using quite a bit of steam. And I'm just going to go through and iron the joined edges flat. Then I'm going to flip the bias tape over and ensure that it's ironed all the way open. This is also a really nice opportunity to snip any threads that you didn't get and really make your bias tape perfect. So it doesn't really matter much if you want to press the front or the back first, or if you only want to press the front. Just make sure if you used a marking utensil like I did, that you don't iron on that. So you can just use a little bit of water or even, you know, spit, and that will take the disappearing ink off. And it's very important to iron these seams like this because it's going to make it a lot easier to move this through the bias tape maker. So now, about the bias tape maker. By the way, you're going to need a little pin. What you do is basically, move my iron over to the right. I have specific directions I like to work in. So I'm going to start feeding my bias tape through my bias maker. I have the end trailing off my ironing board, and you thread it through, or I'm sorry, not, yeah, thread it, put it, push it, whatever you want to say, through like this. And then you can get a pin or an awl or something like that. And then you just allow it to come out folded. Now, I know that you may be able to see, I do have some leftover markings from my disappearing ink, but I don't really care about those because you are not going to see this part at all, because this is double fold bias tape, so basically that's what you're going to see whenever it's sewn on to your project. I'll show you an example. Actually, scratch that. Oh, here it is. Silly me. This is a bias finished edge. This is a tank top I made. And how nice does that look from the inside and on the outside? It's lovely. It's, in my opinion, the classiest way to finish your seams. So after I've got it fed through a little bit, I get my pen and I stick it all the way down in there. It's also, if you have glass head pens, I would advise those, but I don't because I'm cheap. Oopsie. But anyway, you feed the wrong side, you put, that's going to be facing you up, and then you just take your steam iron and you're pressing. You are not ironing, because this will cause the bias tape to come open, and it won't meet neatly in the middle like that. If you iron it, it's going to make it all weird. So press, don't iron. Oh my gosh, I keep doing that. Okay, here we go. Now this part is important. This is a seam. See? This is a seam right here. So had we not pressed those seams so that they were flat, this would look all weird and wonky. But this is the most difficult thing to get on your bias tape, is this nice diagonal seam when you join the strips. At least it was the most difficult for me. And again, notice I am pressing, not ironing. Okay, I'm going to iron this one little bit. Y'all don't need to see me iron the whole thing. And now I'm going to go ahead and make it double fold bias tape. And the way I do that is I simply fold it in half. I pick a place to pin it so it stays that way. And you can always pin it more than once, but I don't have any glass head pins, so I don't want there to be melted plastic all over my nice, pretty bias tape. I love the diagonal, how the print turned out to be so, you know, diagonal and lovely. It really sums up the essence of bias tape in the 45-degree angle, I say very, very dorkily. Okay, cool. So there you have double fold bias tape. Neat, right? So in order to apply it to your clothing, you're going to need to open one edge. Now you could just get this and wrap it around like a little cardboard thing like they sell bias tape on in the store. But what I like to do, because I typically make bias tape right before I'm going to use it, I like to go through and iron it open, and I'll make a separate video for how to sew bias tape on, but basically you're going to turn your garment or project right side out and align the raw edges. But again, we'll get to that in a different video. So I hope that this was helpful for you. I hope that you learned how to make bias tape, and if you guys have any questions, please do not hesitate to ask me. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll be back soon.